They actually did it. Bubba Wallace has been suspended for one race as a result of being found to have intentionally wrecked 2021 NASCAR champion Kyle Larson. Bombshell. And quite frankly, I didn't expect that they would do this, but it turns out they have. One race suspension for Bubba Wallace. We got to take it back to last night first, because the story kind of continued with this carefully worded apology posted by Bubba Wallace on Twitter. Let's read that really quick. I want to apologize for my actions on Sunday following the on-track incident with Kyle Larson and the number 5 car. So, real quick, he only apologized right off the bat for the actions after the crash. Didn't admit any fault for the accident. My behavior does not align with the core values that are shared by 2311 and our partners who have played a crucial role in my incredible journey to the top of this great sport. So, apologizing to the sponsors. I want to apologize to NASCAR and the fans, along with Christopher Bell, Joe Gibbs Racing, and Toyota for putting them in a situation in the playoffs that they do not deserve. And there's an admission that he did cause trouble to Christopher Bell and kind of tacitly admitting that he was at fault for the on-track accident, and that may have been what drew the penalty, by the way. I compete with immense passion, and with that passion at times comes frustration. Upon reflecting, I should have represented our partners and core team values better than I did by letting my frustrations follow me outside of the car. Interesting, again, outside of the car. You live and you learn, and I intend to learn from this. Well, NASCAR feels like he should learn a little bit more, because at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time today, NASCAR announced that one race suspension for Bubba Wallace, which will likely be served at the next race at Homestead Miami Speedway. No points penalties and no monetary fines have been levied at Bubba Wallace either. First of all, I am shocked that they did this. Honestly, I was expecting them to kind of be consistent, which I probably shouldn't have done given this is NASCAR. But the last intentional wreck that they penalized was, I believe, Noah Gragson at Road America, where he took out like half the field on a restart for an intent wreck on Sage Karam, and they penalized him money and points. Well, as it turns out, we get to Bubba Wallace. He does a similar sort of accident, an intent wreck, although on a super speedway, which may be the real deciding factor in why this was a race penalty rather than a points and fine penalty. But they dock him a race, and Bubba Wallace will not be racing at Homestead Miami Speedway with the NASCAR Cup Series. Now, despite the fact that I'm shocked that they did this, that they made this call, I think it is the right call. Now, like I said in a previous video, I may have been a little bit more radical. I may have just sat him for the entire year, but which is like 3 more races, like 2 more races than NASCAR gave him. So it's not that much more radical. But yeah, I think that NASCAR had to make this call, and I'm pleased to see that they did, because there was a time where it was clear that this was escalating. And quite frankly, they should have dropped the hammer on William Byron, if I'm being 100% honest. I think they should have sat him down for a race. The reason they probably didn't is because he's a playoff driver, but frankly, I think they need to start having a zero-tolerance policy to these types of intentional wrecks. I think if you want to get out of the car and have a fight, the one thing that Bubba Wallace did apologize for doing, I think that's fine. I mean, it's not a great look on the sport. You should leave it at Bowman Gray or whatever. If you're at the top level of sport, should you be conducting yourself in that way? Probably not. But I would say that it's very unlikely the NASCAR driver punching another driver is going to result in his injury or death. What we saw with Bubba Wallace was an accident in which Kyle Larson could have been hurt. And especially given the emphasis on safety and the admission that NASCAR themselves have even said that the next-gen car isn't quite up to the safety standards that the previous generation is. Now, they're working on that, but it's not there yet. And with the focus on that, you cannot have drivers dumping each other at those kind of speeds at that type of a track, Las Vegas Motor Speedway. Just not a good look. It shouldn't happen. But, again, positively, NASCAR handed down the penalty that I think is deserved here. Now, I do have a couple of questions here. Number one, will 2311 appeal this penalty? We've seen the appeals process in NASCAR, generally speaking, give the teams and drivers favorable results when they fight these penalties. So if 2311 fights this penalty, and let's say the appeals board finds that NASCAR is somehow in the wrong for this and don't allow Bubba Wallace to serve a one-race suspension, what happens then? Because then your appeals process is totally screwed the one time you've really put your foot down on intentional wrecking, and it shows that everybody is going to be able to get away with it if they want to. That, I think, would be a very bad thing if that does indeed happen. I would be very curious. We'll have to wait and see. It might be worth doing for 2311 to go ahead and appeal it, but it would not be the best outcome for the sport as a whole. I can definitely tell you that. What also is interesting is that there was a tweet from Bob Pockris that said there was the rule that was violated was a rule in the rule book specifically that says thou shalt not intentionally wreck, which is curious to me because I'm pretty sure we've seen so many intentional wrecks over the course of NASCAR's history, particularly recently, that have not resulted in race suspensions. Now, if this is a change in culture, great, and this is a positive step for NASCAR. But the fact that they haven't been enforcing this until Bubba Wallace crashed Kyle Larson, I think, is kind of ridiculous. Because if you've got the rule in the book that says no intentional wrecking, perhaps you shouldn't allow drivers to intentionally wreck each other. And I think the standard of a race suspension for a crash such as this, an intentional wreck, is good. Will it be enforced consistently? Probably not. And it's a terrible look for NASCAR if Bubba Wallace is the only driver who ever gets a one-race suspension for intentionally wrecking drivers from this point forward. NASCAR has set a new standard here. Let's be very, very clear. I would hope that it's going to be zero tolerance from now on. If you do it and you are found to have intentionally wrecked an opponent, you're out of here for a race. If they're consistent, again, thumbs up. But again, expecting NASCAR to be consistent, I don't think so. Who would replace him? I think this is a fun thing to talk about. I think the general consensus is it's going to be John Hunter Nemechek. Yawn, boring. Let's be more fun. Let's throw Carl Edwards out there. Maybe he gets his Homestead redemption. What about Matt Kenseth? Hey, he's got a relationship with McDonald's. He drove the McDonald's car when Kyle Larson got suspended. What did he get suspended for again? How about Trevor Bayne? I know my pal and cameraman Kyle would be doing backflips if Trevor Bayne got this type of an opportunity. Maybe Chandler Smith? Maybe Brandon Jones? The crazy thing about this is that 2311, regardless of what happens, is going to have both of their cars filled by replacement drivers at Homestead. When was the last time an entire team had to sit out an entire race? That is just insane. And I think it goes back to the point that I made when right after the accident, is that, yeah, Bubba Wallace is going to be sitting on the sidelines for causing this accident, but more importantly, I think the tone-deaf nature of this, Bubba causing this accident when, on the same weekend, Kurt Busch, his teammate, had to retire because of the safety concerns of the next-gen car. I think that just, to me, puts it over the top, above anything else, and says to me that, yeah, NASCAR absolutely made the right call here. I hope they are consistent with this ruling from now on. I don't want this just to be the Bubba Wallace penalty, because I think that would be a major mistake for NASCAR. But if they remain consistent, they put their foot down, which it appears that at least based on this penalty they are, I think this is a good thing, because I think it will legitimize the competition, which NASCAR has needed for a very long time. And I think drivers need to respect the profession that they are involved in. And the chance for injury, chance for death, even in this modern safe era of racing, is up there. And I just can't stand, and I haven't. You go back all the way back to the 2018 Daytona 500 for my consistency on this. I don't like intentional wrecking. Never have, never will. There should be a zero tolerance policy for it. And if NASCAR is finally going to put their foot down, it's a thumbs up from me. Thank you guys so much for watching. I would ask you to leave a comment what you think about this, but I have a suspicion that you've already done that. So while you're down there, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.